Hello my friends and welcome back and happy Friday to you. This means you made it past this week. You survived and so did I. But you know what didn't survive? An oil depot in St. Petersburg. Yes, St. Petersburg. As you can see, Russia's second biggest city is quite close to where I am in Tallinn, and it is quite far away from where Kiev is, 1050 kilometers away actually. But this is exactly where our Ukrainian drone was spotted yesterday. Now this drone was shot out by GUR, or Ukrainian intelligence, meaning the drone was probably shot out from a Russian territory by a Ukrainian-controlled partisan movement or opposition movement inside Russia. So this is double negative for Russia. First of all, that St. Petersburg now officially, with the surrounding areas, is a target for Ukrainian drone operators, and secondly, that GUR has a working opposition movement or partisan movement in Russia, and even worse, around St. Petersburg, which is, Putin's home city, favorite city, also very far away from Moscow and very far away from Ukraine. This again shows the scale of Ukrainian intelligence operations and their potential inside Russia to affect the upcoming presidential elections. I'm sure we're going to see attacks like this more and more. Russia's biggest strength has always been its big size. Thanks to that, they get a big population to send to war as meat. Thanks to that, it's very hard to occupy the damn country. I mean, Napoleon tried, Germans tried, both of them couldn't get past Moscow. But now it's one of the biggest weaknesses, because in those two instances I mentioned, there were no drones. You physically had to occupy land. We live in an era where a single drone can fly 1,000 kilometers or 500 or 2,000 kilometers, whatever you want to call it, and hit a pinpoint target deep inside Russia. It's a very minor cost for the Ukrainians, but defending that target, let's say in the Ural Mountains, a very important military factory, for example, defending these targets in Russia, which are thousands of kilometers away from each other, that would be insanely costly to put air defense systems around each of these military facilities, because defending the border with air defense, it's outright impossible for Russia. The country is just too damn big. There will always be gaps in air defense, so Russia has to choose what to defend, and they have right now chosen only to be in the special military zone. So Moscow and St. Petersburg have air defense, and the rest of the air defense is mostly in Ukraine or around Ukraine. So if Ukraine were to attack any military factory in the Ural Mountains or in Siberia, there possibly wouldn't be anything Russia can do against it. Of course, they would be able to deploy air defense systems there, but that means they would have to take them away from the occupied Ukraine areas, Moscow or St. Petersburg areas. So let's look at the situation again. Ukraine has drones capable of flying 1,000 kilometers. That means there's almost an infinite amount of military targets inside Russia in the span of 1,000 kilometers. The fact is also that Russia does not have air defense systems ready to defend these factories, and they don't even want to, because Putin focuses everything in Ukraine. In the light of upcoming Russia's presidential elections, I think we're gonna see big booms and kabooms going on inside Russia all over the place. 1,000 kilometers from each other, a little fire here, a little fire there, and this shows to the Russian people and populace that Putin really cannot do anything against these attacks. And no country would be able to do. It's just impossible to defend against this. Even with jammers, I mean, there are just too many factories in Russia to defend them all with jammers or anti-air defense systems. It's just sheer numbers. You just cannot produce that much. My friends, this is the city of Bryansk, and talking about Ukrainians being able to project their air power or drones or missiles, we're seeing missiles also, into Russia, many hundreds or thousands of kilometers away. You can see this is a city, a big Russian city, about 200, 150 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. Why I'm talking about this? Because yesterday Ukrainians sent many drones there into an oil depot, which went up in flames magnificently. I've talked so much about Russia freezing and the water pipes bursting because of insane temperatures. Well, now they don't have to freeze anymore because the oil depot is on fire. and fire is very warm. So people in Bryansk who have their water pipes burst and their panelkas are out of heating can now go to the resource that belongs to them. And I'm talking about Russian oil that Putin has stolen from the Russian people. Now these Bryansk people can go and enjoy the oil that belongs to them in a magnificent warm fire. They will not be cold anymore. And they can thank the Ukrainians for taking care of their heating issues. They don't have to freeze anymore. Thank you, Ukrainians. Now, my friends, I will take 2 minutes of your time to actually watch this clip. This is a message from the Lithuanians. Now, the Baltics, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, we're all we are disillusioned about Russia, about the Soviet Union, and about the Russian Empire, imperialist actions. This has been going on for hundreds of years, centuries actually. So I want to share this opinion to you because I stand behind it, I agree with it, and knowing it comes from the Lithuanians, I don't even have to question it.
First of all, I think it would be good, and speaking about the messages to Putin, to commit not just to as long as it takes, but change the it to victory, and change to...
What are we talking about in the West? Yes, we will support. We pledge support. Okay, let's get real here. Let's put the cards on the table. Ukraine cannot lose this war. Then why do we say as long as it takes? We support Ukraine until Ukrainian victory, until Ukraine liberates all of its territory. This is what I stand behind. This is what I fight for.
Whatever it takes. I think that's, a very strong deterring message to Vladimir Putin.
I'm sorry to pause this much, but I again agree so much because the Russian state is a mafia state. It's a huge mafia organization. And if you have had any knowledge about these organizations or similar ones, they understand one language, which is force. Show of force, strength. They don't understand words and they don't respect words. They respect force. And you have to communicate with them, with their language. Otherwise, you speak a different language. If Europe speaks democratic, diplomatic language, and the Russian mafia state, terrorist state, speaks the language of force, of course, the Europeans are going to lose because they will go with a knife to a gunfight. You have to speak the language to understand the Russians.
The second thing is equipment. I can give you one example. That's Poland. So now they have orders for an equipment. If I'm not mistaken, about 1,000 tanks, about 500 HIMARS systems.
500 HIMARS. Poland, what are you smoking? I mean, this is a compliment, obviously. I mean, what the hell? Of course, Poland has financial issues because of these huge orders, but they understand that they don't have any other option, as does no country in Europe. And Poland says, okay, we're going to have financial issues because of these huge orders. But thanks to these weapons, we will remain free for the next century and we can deal with these financial issues. If any other country, let's say Germany, doesn't invest these huge amounts into its military and is afraid of these financial issues, they will... Germany won't be occupied by Russia, but Poland has this very real possibility that if they don't take huge loans and buy a lot of weapons now, there might be no Poland in 20 years. So they know what's up and they have made the right choice. I know Estonia does the same. I know Latvia, Lithuania do the same. I see Finland, I see Ukraine, but I mean, let's talk about Germany, Spain, France, Italy, all of these countries that physically will, let's say, they will never be invaded by Russia, these 4 countries in the Western Europe. UK is also doing the right things. But Northern Europeans and Eastern Europeans understand the most. And I don't know how to speak the language or to get through to the Western Europeans. It's very hard. It's very difficult.
And about 40 Patriot systems. Poland is roughly the same size, the same population as Ukraine. And Poland has the Article 5. So it gives you an idea.
I'm so sorry I paused this much, but it's a very good comparison. Poland has the security of Article 5 and they're still militarizing like there's no tomorrow. So the Polish, I would always bring an example of the Polish, how to behave right now towards the Russians.
What a military planner is planning to have in case Russia attacks. Not 40 HIMARS, 400, not 80 tanks, 1,000. So this is what we need to pledge if we are committed to the first fact that we want to win. And now,
I agree
and last point
with
of this,
everything here.
the cost. Absolutely right. This is all about money. And we've been there in a similar situation just a couple of years ago. It was different, but similar in the sense that we were shocked. It was called COVID. And Europe bonded together and pledged 700 billion euros.
700 billion. I mean, let that number sink in. Correct me here if I'm wrong, but isn't that close to United States military spending every year, something like that? Please correct me in the comments, I make a mistake here. But 700 billion. Now each country is pledging perhaps 1 billion, 2 billion to Ukraine. Even 100 billion is not even a dream for Ukraine. We're talking 50, 40 maybe in the span of 5 years. And with COVID, the entire European Union pledged 700 with a span of months. And they followed through, they coughed money at this problem. And this problem was, I would say Russia is a bigger problem, in my eyes at least. So I don't see why Europe is not united anymore on this. They were united behind the attack against COVID. They're not united against the Russian invasion. In my eyes, this should be even more of a reason to be united.
To recover from COVID, because it was that important. So when somebody's saying now that we're unable, it's too tough, it's impossible, I'm saying we're just not taking it seriously enough, unfortunately. The problem is that we don't feel that Putin is deterred enough. That without saying the 3 points that I've mentioned at the beginning, he thinks that we might falter, that maybe we don't want to win, maybe we won't send the equipment, and maybe we won't find it enough.
I'm sorry to pause again. I just want to guide your attention. I thought this is squiggly lines right here. I only now understood. It says stand with Ukraine, but you cannot really understand it. It's like very squiggly. It's a genius artwork.
So let's fix the first 3 points, and I think that he won't attack anybody else. Thank you so much.
I agree with every last word he said right here, and this is my existing reality. This is how we in Estonia, and I've named the countries to you already, this is our reality. And the countries in Western Europe, and of course United States and Canada, they all have the pleasure and luxury to have a choice, whether we want to help them or whether we don't want to help them. We don't have that choice here. It's for us, it's survive or die. So, but there is no choice. There is only one action, and I'm acting like that. My countrymen are acting like that. But I wish to see Western European allies on my side. My friends, and talking about the European Union, or actually NATO coming together and showing at least some kind of force, I'm glad this is happening, but it should have happened before, and it should happen more frequently. The biggest NATO military exercise, combined NATO military exercise, since the Cold War, so since 30 years, is happening in February. In 1 month it will begin. It will involve 90,000 troops from all NATO allies, every last one of them, plus Sweden, who is a NATO candidate state. So all NATO allies and Sweden, they will participate in NATO's largest exercise for decades, known as the Steadfast Defender 2024. That will kick off next week and run through to May. So it will run 2.5 months. The scenario involves a Russian attack on one of its allies, triggering Article 5 of the NATO treaty. The last exercise of this scale took place in 1988, and it involved 125,000 troops. So we're talking almost 40 years, the biggest, almost half a century, the biggest exercise on the European soil. What United Kingdom is sending to the NATO's biggest exercise since the Cold War is 20,000 British soldiers, sailors and aviators. And we also have footage. On this footage you can see the movement of a battalion of United States Striker armor personnel carriers about 30 kilometers from Grodno. On January 14th around 12 at noon, at a railroad crossing near Polish city of Augustów, local residents filmed the train carrying at least 11 Striker armor personnel carriers with communications and support equipment. In the video, the Strikers are moving towards the Suwalki corridor, the land route from the Belarus to Kaliningrad. The Americans consider the corridor to be NATO's Achilles heel and the place where Russia will attack the alliance. That is why military exercises are constantly held here, and NATO forces and assets are being built up, especially in Poland. Look, my friends, this is Russia and this is Belarus. I mean, Belarus is super... Lukashenko is pure puppet, so we could call Belarus also a Russian militarized area. So let's say this is Russia, Belarus. This is Kaliningrad right here. That's Lithuania, that's Poland. Kaliningrad is a Russian enclave. It's a abomination in the middle of Eastern Europe, which is part of Russia. And they have nuclear weapons here. They have all kinds of weapons here. Everything the Russians have in their military exists in Kaliningrad Oblast. Electronic warfare jammers, anti-air defense systems, missiles, nuclear warheads, tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, and a lot of infantry. Now look at this corridor between Belarus and Kaliningrad Oblast. This is about 80 to 100 kilometers of land corridor, which is European Union. This is called the Suwalki Gap. It is the weakest point of NATO and European Union in the northern eastern part of it. If there would be an attack, it will come from here. I mean, this is, you don't have to be smart, you don't have to be nobody to say that this is the weak point. You take this, you isolate Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia, and then there's a physical wall of occupation between Poland and Lithuania. But now that the Finland joined NATO, I mean, before it was easy for the Russians. You take the Suwalki Gap, you have the three Baltics, they have nowhere to go, it's water all across. Finland is not in NATO, so you take the Baltics, and then NATO has to fight to liberate these territories. Now Finland is in NATO, and Article 5 applies to Finland also, meaning that if Suwalki is taken, an invasion for the three Baltics, and including my country, begins, Finland deploys its forces, and they are so close. Also, Sweden is a candidate status and also actively performs NATO exercises and has pledged support in case of invasion. Finland and Sweden, Stockholm the capital, will send their air forces and navies. So it would be a lot harder to occupy these Baltics. Plus, Finnish and Swedish forces would be pushing back on the Baltic soil. Now, of course, I'm playing God right now. I'm not stupid or naive enough to think that me, with my infantryman's training, can know anything about this stuff. This is how I understand it, the most simplest and robust ways. Finland is buying F-35s. Sweden has a respectable air force of Saab Gripens. Finland and Sweden also combined have a very respectable navy. Finland has one of the biggest artillery forces in Europe. And if you combine the Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania and the allied forces deployed right now, at this moment in these three Baltics, we have a very respectable, sizable force of NATO troops and equipment in the Baltic area. So even if the Suwalki is taken, it will be a huge, bloody push against the steel wall to take the Baltics. Now, I'm not saying, oh, it will be easy, they will never attack. No, I'm not naive or stupid again. This is a very big reality that the Russians will attack the Baltics. But looking at the situation, I'm living here in Estonia. I'm not illusioned about anything. I'm not illusioned of how small we are, that we don't have any mountains, that it's very difficult to defend a flat country like this. But I also know the NATO capabilities in the area. I know which NATO aircrafts are making circles in the Baltic Sea every day. I know what Finland is buying next year and after next year from America and from South Korea. I know what we are buying. So I'm telling you, we are getting ready. We have no illusions. We're preparing the way we should prepare. Estonia is pumping 0.5% extra of the country's GDP into military every year. We're going to 4% in like the matter of 3 years. Poland is already at 4%. So my friends, I just want to let you know, especially you guys in America, who are basically lifting up the Western European nations because they're lazy and they don't want to defend themselves. We in Eastern Northern Europe, we're doing all we can. Everything we can. We're taking loans to buy weapons. If you say, oh, we don't want to defend Europe anymore, you got to talk to Germans, French, Spain, Italy. That's where you got to talk to. And now, my friends, for the last time this week, my favorite part of the video, which is butchering the Patreon names. I have actually 7 new names today. I mean, we had 4 throughout this week, and now it's 7, so I'm glad to bring it to you. Mirva Ahonen torilla tavataan. Mirva Ahonen torilla tavataan. Suomi mainittu. Kiitos, my Finnish brothers or sisters. I'm not sure if it's a female name, sorry. Simon Karabela. Jochen Graves, Lavrenke Kosmetar, Andrev Knikt, Aaron Stonerok. Thank you to these people. All of you guys, all of you 7, you're at least a sergeant in the Artur's army. And I wouldn't butcher every sergeant's name. So head on to the Patreon, link is in the description below. And until my next update, my friends, which will be on Monday, so be back, Slava Ukraini, and bye bye.